When you have a vision for what you want in your life, you really have to chart out how you're going to achieve it. And then the only thing that's stopping you from achieving that vision that you have for you is the action.
Welcome back to the show. I am Remington Ramsey, and today Jonathan Spears is my guest down in 30A, the Panhandle of Florida. How you doing, Jonathan?
Doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Of course you're doing awesome. It's sunny in Florida. Everyone else is getting cold, and you're just laughing at us.
Oh, geez. I don't want to rub it in, but for us, when it gets cold elsewhere, the humidity just kind of dissipates here. So we go from hot summers to perfect falls, beautiful winters. It's my local season, as I like to call it.
It's great, man. Well, very envious. I told you before in the pre-show, for Indiana, like anyone who's successful in business and wants to launch a second part of their business is always in Florida, at least for Indiana. I'm sure there's part of that for the whole Midwest. So no stranger to your territory. What we want to talk about today, Jonathan, is a couple things, but you're a bit of what I would call a child prodigy. And I don't know much of your story outside of just the Cliffs Notes. So I'm really excited to learn. Started college at the age of 14 and went to the dean and was accepted, graduated college at 18 and immediately went into real estate. So there's so much there that we have to pause and just well, before we pause, I want people to know the end of this story so they really pay attention, because in your 20s, you accumulated $2 billion worth of real estate sales. So that's where this story ends and is currently sitting. But let's start from the beginning with, a 14-year-old who decides, I'm just going to skip this whole high school gig and go straight to college. What's that all about? Now, on top of that, and sorry to interrupt you before you even start, but Dan Hyder is the one that referred us to you, who's the opposite story. Dropped out of college and in one of the, highest educated markets, DC, and made his way. You're quite the opposite. So how did that all happen?
That's right. Danny's even got an interesting one too, because he migrated from Mississippi up to Washington, D.C., which is total culture shock. But I love Danny. Thank you, Danny, if you're listening, for recommending me. One of my favorite human beings. But for me, at 14, I'd love to tell you that I was some genius and, like you say, a prodigy. I really wasn't. I was a misfit that did not get along with kids my age. I could not figure out how to be not socially awkward. And it was really like, okay, my parents had one or two choices. They needed to homeschool me, or they were going to send me to military school, because I was a type A, loved to challenge authority. And, I was very achievement goal oriented, but I didn't have the right goals at the time. And one day I heard about the dual enrollment program that Florida offers, which allows you to kind of circumvent paying for your first 2 years of college. So typically it's a program for high schoolers. And so anyways, I took advantage of this program because I was watching what was happening in the global economy and realizing that, hey, I'm not going to be able to afford college if I don't knock it out now. And so I felt highly motivated to just get after it.
So literally that was what made you decide to, hey, I'm going to go and try that. Like, is there not rules against? Could someone do this today?
They could. Let me tell you how I did it. So one, I was highly ambitious, right? And I was starting to realize, okay, I need to figure out how to get out of my parents' house. I had challenged authority, and I love my parents. They're incredible. Honestly, my mom drove me to school the first 2 years. Imagine your mom dropping you off at college the first 2 years. What do those students say? They're like, what's going on with this kid? Is his mom a teacher? Like, why is he here? So I called the dean of the local college and I said, listen, I am homeschooled, which I was. And I've already gone through 10th grade, which is a prerequisite for dual enrolling. It's my first grade cold call, right? Like, I'm calling this person up. I probably sound like this. And I'm asking, hey, can I get into this program through homeschool? And they said, look, if you can pass the Florida College Placement Test, which was essentially a version of the SAT or ACT, then you can enter. You got to get X number of scores. I passed everything but the math portion. And so I jumped into pretty much all kinds of classes and I saved math for last, which I ended up passing. But that's how I got in. And for me, it was really just trying to figure out how can I chart a path out to kind of achieve this highly driven vision that I had for myself. I was very
Yeah.
entrepreneurial, but also it forced me to learn to work through that social awkwardness because I had to work with people who are multi-generational then. It kind of set me up for the success that I have today, especially trying to build success in an early age, which we'll talk about, because I had to learn to work with people that weren't my age, didn't have my same viewpoints, find empathy for them, and also figure out how we can achieve a common goal together. And so that was a great kind of building block in general for life.
Well, your life is fascinating because at the age of 18, you could have already written a book about your life. I mean, no one does that, right? So then all of a sudden, and it's not that you weren't smart, but the more impressive part of that is just how ambitious you were to graduate when most people are graduating from high school. So then the second piece of this that I find fascinating is you went into real estate, which you don't even need a degree to do in the first place. So what does your degree end up being in?
Finance. So really got a general business degree with a specialty in finance. That was always what I was interested in. Like I wanted to be entrepreneurial. I really at the time I wanted to go off and study in London. I wanted to do international business. I thought I lived in a small town. It was insignificant in terms of the lay of the land and I needed to get out. And this was circa 2009, 2010, which was like we had just watched kind of the bottom fall out in global economies, specifically in our market, which is really a second home area. Foreclosures were at an all-time high. Household average income and wealth have been eroded tremendously. I mean, we were at a point where it's like, I remember I had to drive over a bridge that told us $3 per way. And my parents were like, look, you don't have to get a job to pay for this bridge toll because I can't take you to school. I mean, I was feeling at home the pressure of the economy. And so
Yeah.
it really kind of also that timing forced me to adapt. I had to figure out how can I make something of myself even in these troubled times? And
Now, why
so
were you so attuned to that as a teenager, though? I mean, when I was a teenager, all I cared about was making the basketball team and, making enough money to take a girl on a date. Like, what had you all wrapped up in the economy?
man, dude, that's so funny. I was total opposite. I was sitting in economics class watching Lehman Brothers collapse, kind of just in awe, trying to understand like what is going on.
Hmm.
And I really didn't, I can appreciate that perspective more now than I did then, right? And so for me, my parents walked through this financial crisis and it hit home. My dad was a builder. His business was kind of obliterated. They had overinvested in real estate. And so I was getting a firsthand education on this down market, it's
Hmm.
almost depressed market at the time that you wouldn't have had otherwise. I mean, when mom and dad go, hey, we can't really afford to pay for a bridge toll, you
Right.
go, all right, I've got to figure this out.
Hmm.
Now the responsibility shifted early on from it being my parents' responsibility to raise and take care of me to now it's Jonathan's turn to be fiscally responsible. And if these are the things that I want to do, I'm going to have to figure out a way to pay for it. And
Yeah.
so that's what shifted my attention from, kind of operating in a high school environment to, hey, I need to plan this out.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool that growing up essentially poor, living paycheck to paycheck. And I would argue that anyone who is living paycheck to paycheck is poor, regardless of how much the cash flow is. I mean, we've talked about that a lot on this show. Like, even if you're making 30 grand a month, if you're spending 31 grand a month, you're poor. And some
100%.
people, you know what I
Most of
mean?
them are making 30 grand a month, spending 60.
Yeah.
They're way outliving their lifestyle.
So, I mean, do you mind sharing? So you mentioned that your parents were overextended in real estate. Is that residential real estate that was not getting rented out, I'm guessing?
Yeah, let me actually lay it out because if from the outside in, we certainly would not have looked poor. We would have looked fairly wealthy. They had a beautiful home on the water. The problem is they had way overspent on what that was,
Mhm.
assuming that the market would continue to support the values that they were putting into that property. They over mortgaged the home. The market shifted. Our market shifted to the tune of like 50, 60, 70% within a like 12-month timeline. And
Yeah.
so it's such a dramatic fall. And then once it fell, it's not like it fell, it hit ground and rebounded. It fell and it fell some more and then it fell some more and it fell some more. The market was young. Our market really, its inception was 2005.
I was gonna
So,
say, so that would have been right around '08.
yep, correct. So we really, it was just a perfect storm of events. But for me, it was really about learning and understanding, how do I overcome this challenge? How is this challenge an opportunity for me to grow, and really an opportunity for me to get to where I wanted to be? I think my mindset's much more of a visionary mindset, like most people who would choose to get into a sales position as opposed to choosing a salary job. I mean,
Right.
anybody that's listening right now, the only reason that you're doing this is because you see that sky's the limit as far as being able to produce an income for yourself. And
That would have
so,
been that would have been a really disappointing end to that story, is if you went to school at the age of 14, graduated at 18, and then got a desk job. That
dude,
would not have made
can
sense.
I tell you, during school, for anybody that's in school and maybe listening to this and going, I don't know if real estate's for me or not. When I was in school, I was at Florida State University. Love FSU. I'm a no. But somebody came in from the accounting department and they said, hey, good news. We've got starting salaries of $30,000. When I heard that, I was like, I cannot survive on a starting salary of 30, much less that does not make me excited to wake up every day and come to this institution.
And you're
And
just a
so,
student at that point, let alone get a family, and man.
oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I got married really early too, but thankfully I had knocked out college well beforehand. But yeah, I mean, it's really about adapting. And for me and for anybody listening, I think when you have a vision for what you want in your life, you really have to chart out how you're going to achieve it. And then the only thing that's stopping you from achieving that vision that you have for you is the action of just taking that first step. Most of us as entrepreneurs and most of us as salespeople, we're high eyes, meaning we love to interact with other
Yeah.
people. The problem with that is most high eyes, they start at level 1 and then they look up at level 10 and they go, I got to get there right now. And then they tire out on their journey of going from 1 to 10. And then 10 becomes 5, which becomes 4, which becomes 3, which becomes 2. And then they find themselves right back at 1 where they started and they're discouraged. And so for me, I through that process of going to school early and having to kind of overcome some economic hardship and really get independent quick, like kicked out of the nest early, I learned that I had to fall in love with this process. I had to have a marathon mindset about what I wanted. Otherwise, I was never going to achieve it.
Sure. Well, so you come back to the Destin market. You start in real estate around the time where the sky is falling, truly. And now on the other side of $2 billion, you've learned a lot. The interesting thing about the Destin market that I've at least done some research on is that I feel like there's more realtors than there are people that buy homes in Destin.
Yeah, they're making more
So
real
it's a pretty
estate
competitive and hot market, right?
It's very competitive. Yeah. It's so funny. I was joking earlier. We'll walk into a restaurant right now, pick any restaurant in our area, and I promise you, 1 out of 2 people sitting in that restaurant is a licensed real estate agent. In fact, right now in our kind of off season or shoulder season, I'd say all of them are probably real estate agents. And so it's a very saturated market from that standpoint, but that's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity that your competition is likely not going to be somebody that is going to outwork you. The work ethic's not there. The mindset's not there. The stigma of the average agent, the low barrier of entry, you can overcome easily. And so I looked at that as an opportunity, especially as a young kid. I mean, starting at 18, my looks, I mean, I probably looked like I was 12. I didn't look like I had hit puberty yet. And so
Yeah.
I come into appointments and people be like, are we waiting on your dad to show
Where's your
up?
dad? Yeah.
Yeah, I got that so much to the point where instead of me going, oh gosh, ooh, I'm insecure again about this, I'd start laughing. I'd be like, listen, he'll be here in 5, but let's take a look at the house first. And they all start busting out laughing. I'd be like, no, listen, this is my story. I use that as an opportunity because
Sure.
I realized my superpower was becoming relatable. And so when I became relatable to my customers or to our customers in general, they develop trust. They want to work with me. And then to take that a step further, it's like, okay, in that relatability, why not ask for business? Why not, just go for the jugular? Why not say, hey, let's make the offer? Let's disarm immediately. Let's approach people and kind of go the relationship route.
Man, I love that. I think about you showing up to those listing appointments and looking young. I mean, we talked about being successful in your 20s. I remember answering the door when I first bought my home for like a salesperson, and they say, "Is your dad home still?" And I would literally, if it was a salesperson, I'd be like, "Oh, he's not here right now. Sorry." Then
Love
shut the
it.
door. But
Love it.
I remember that, and man, at the age of 18, selling homes to what, I'm assuming the average home buyer, at least in that market, was probably late 30s, maybe early 40s, maybe even higher than that. You said this is the off season. Isn't
Fire.
isn't the off season when it's hot outside in Florida?
No, man, it's so wild. So I say off season loosely. We've got maybe like a week or two of off season.
Yeah.
We're much more of a year round market, but our prime season is from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So it's some
That's when people are buying.
some people are buying. That's when people are renting. That's when people are spending the most time here.
Mhm.
It's mainly because 30A, which is the primary market that we serve, it's a family destination. We've coined it the Hamptons of the South, and so it's really an area for vacation that it perfectly aligns with Dallas, with Nashville, with Atlanta, with Indy, with Kansas City. I mean, we've really been able to kind of bring these large metropolitan areas across the South and the Midwest um, to our market, and that's what's really developed it over the years.
Mm. So what do you love? I usually start the show off with this, but what do you love about selling in Destin? You've grown up and lived in Destin your entire life, save from when you were in school.
Yep.
What do you love about the market? What do you enjoy about moving people in and out of that city?
A couple of things. One is the people, right? Like in a second home market, you can meet people from all over the world because you're really capturing attention while they're there for a very short time frame. So the people that spend the most money in this market, they spend the least amount of time here. And so for me, it's an opportunity to make great connections and then to consistently be the resource for them when they come back to town. The other thing is we get to deal with some of the most incredible architecture in a market that has really only just started to find a footing. I mean, South Florida, for example, Palm Beach is one of the most notable markets in the world from a luxury standpoint. Was really founded and conceived in the early 1900s. It's got a north of 100-year cycle. And it's really just now hitting some of its peak moments, $200 million sales. For us, we were founded in 2005. Most of the amazing developments here, most of the architecture that was kind of brought out of the ground, I mean, we're not even 20 years old. So it's exciting to kind of have this opportunity. I see it as opportunity, and you can see this kind of backdrop behind me, this white sand beach, this
Yeah.
emerald green water. It's always been the draw of this area, but now we're starting to bring in, architecture and culture that really creates a new definition of traveling in the South.
Mm. So one thing we didn't talk about is when you first got started. Yes, it was around 2008, but also the BP oil spill. I wonder how that impacted your beginnings, specifically in that market. Was that a big deal?
It was. I got a license in February of 2010, and the BP oil spill happened in June or July. I think it was June, May, June. And so I got a job a month before the BP oil spill, working as somebody's assistant. I was about to go be an assistant for what I'd call a foreclosure factory. Right? It's funny because like right now, our average sales price is north of $3 million for my team. We've already closed 200 plus million this year in real estate. And I did not start off selling $300 million or $3 million houses. I started off selling $300,000, really $30,000 houses, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like this overnight, okay, I'm immediately jumping into luxury real estate. I had to really start from the bottom. And that bottom was HUD housing, foreclosures. It was not the sexy side of real estate. It wasn't when I flipped on $1 million listing. That was me. And I immediately was transported into that world. And I think that's like for anybody that's watching, it's okay to start somewhere. I think the biggest thing is just starting, just
Yeah.
getting up, kind of making that effort and learning. I mean, thank God I was able to cut my teeth on $30,000 sales. Some of those deals were 10 times more complicated than the $20 million houses that I'm selling today. And
Really?
if I had that kind of learning curve, I wouldn't be the problem solver that I am today. I wouldn't be able to add as much value to my clients.
Yeah. Well, we talked about overextending yourself earlier in the show. We said, "Hey, listen, if you bring in $30,000 a month, but if you spend 31,000, you're in a world of hurt." when you start seeing success and you start working in the luxury market and you start to do these numbers, I mean, you've already done $200 million. You start spending differently. You start, you get more people on your team, most of us at least, and you expand that way. And then you expand across the nation. You start, your tastes get more expensive. So how do you not overextend yourself as you start seeing this kind of massive success? Because we'll have people that we're featuring on the cover of Real Producers who have been successful in real estate for 20, 25 plus years. And then you'll see them not be able to leave because they still have to sell that house. They haven't created wealth for themselves. They just created a sales business. So like, how do you do that?
That's such a great question. Nobody's ever asked me this question. So I'm so glad you've asked.
All right.
It's so interesting because the way that I look at performance, right? Let's start with the performance of our business. Let's just say I'm the top salesperson in an office and I've had a great year. Does that mean that I go out and I buy the best car in the market and then I immediately put down the most money on a house? I think my background, because I grew up and when I say grew up, I really, that kicked out of the nest kind of mentality, because I left home so early, I really understood what a dollar's value was. And I think for anybody that makes a dollar in this business, I want you to think about the fact that you're exchanging your time, your most precious commodity, your time, for money. And so if you're willing to do that on a consistent basis over and over and over and over, then sure, go buy the watch, go buy the car, go buy the clothes. But that watch better be a conversation piece with your clients. That car better be a tool. I'll tell you a story. The very first big purchase I made, I convinced my Mimi, my grandmother, to co-sign on a BMW convertible for me when I was 18 years old. So it was like first big purchase. And of course, I've had a little bit of success, but I'm like, okay, this is going to help give me credibility. My parents were like, you're crazy. We're not helping you. And my Mimi was like, all right, honey, I'll help you. So shout out to you, Mimi. But she co-signed on that car. I cannot tell you how many conversations I had about that car. And at the time, it was just a cool car, and I was able to leverage it to, first of all, look the part, but ultimately get the door open. Because here's the thing, it's not enough to just open a door, right? It's not enough to open the door. You have to walk in and have that preparation to where that preparation has put you in a position to maximize this opportunity with somebody. I was so well prepared. I didn't just drive a car. I wasn't trying to act a certain way. I was authentically me. And I was utilizing maybe these things, these possessions around me to position myself in the part of the market that I want to serve. So if you're out there and you're thinking about, okay, I've had some success, how do I maybe get to the next level? Or maybe I've had some success, I want to splurge on myself. Always think about a splurge as an investment that you can leverage.
That makes sense.
Business.
Yeah, I've posted on Facebook before in the Indianapolis market. Now, the luxury market in Florida is very different than Indianapolis. Indianapolis is still way behind, which is great for cost of living. But like, what is considered luxury in Destin right now? Like, is there a price point that considers it luxury?
I mean, luxury is an experience, right? But what I'd say realistically is like our average price points, especially like Destin proper, are closer to $1 million. But the markets that I'm focused on, which is 30A, the East end of 30A is almost $3 million in terms of average sales price. So if we're thinking luxury is going to be 3 million plus.
Yeah.
If you had $1 million, you're coming to this market, you're not really able to have that go as far as you'd like.
Right.
And so for us, we really have to be able to position ourselves to add value, because somebody from Indianapolis comes, they may get sticker shock. It's like, why would I buy this? What is that value? And then obviously proposition of, look, pricing matters, but so does quality and location. And this is the quality and this is the location. And here's your education on why you should buy this, or why, Mr. Seller, this is the right time to sell this.
Well, I mean, in Indianapolis for the longest time, it was 500 was that kind of like that barrier. That was considered luxury. And for luxury, I mean, you could get a 6,000 square footage brick home for 500,000. You can't so much do that now. It's we're catching up to like Charlotte prices, and eventually like Nashville would be that next tier. But I posted on Facebook and I said, do you have to drive a luxury car to sell luxury real estate? And what's interesting is, I have a pretty good idea what your answer would be, but you did buy the luxury car. Had you not, could you have still sold luxury real estate?
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely. I
So what is
definitely
so? But because what
I
you
drove
did
a
was you.
Honda Element before. I had the toaster. It had really good subwoofers, so I was loving it.
Oh, there you go. You can take clients and start thumping. But like,
Yeah.
no, but you said you got the BMW, and what you didn't do is just drive it to look cool. You actually used it as a piece, a conversationalist piece, and to, legitimize your business. But had you not done that, you still feel like you would have sold luxury real estate because it wasn't about that.
Yes, but let me tell you something. I think he may have talked about this, but the way that that luxury good makes you feel as a salesperson is also a differential to consider. And so maybe driving the car empowers you. It actually gives you that confidence to go out and get in front of people. Maybe putting on that watch or putting on that shirt or having that specific outfit, it's like your Superman cape. And so what I tell our agents is like, listen, this isn't about, the economics of splurging on a specific item. It's about how are you going to use that? Is it for you? Is it going to empower you? Is it, just to be showy and show off for somebody? Because that's not the right reasons. And so for me, getting that car, it empowered me. It made me feel like, okay, this baby face, I got this. And so I was able to leverage it. But if I didn't have those two things, if I didn't have the understanding that I could leverage a luxury good to get into luxury real estate, or it's again, just to simply open a door so that I'm getting a captive audience that I want to be in front of. And then also the understanding that, hey, I got this. I am the secret sauce. It's not the car. That's just a vehicle. It's me in the car, me getting out of the car and just literally just opening a door and adding value. That is it. That's something else I tell my agents. You are the secret sauce. Spears Group, our brand that we've built, an incredible brand, lots of PR. It's there just to open the door. It's not enough to open a door. It's not even enough that I believe in you to open the door. You are the person that walks in. You are the value on the other end of a line for somebody that may need your services. You are the problem solver. So
Yeah,
it all is
I
very,
love that. I love that. Where I'd like to end the show today, Jonathan, and this has been gold. I think people are tired of the conversation around the market being down and what's going to happen,
yeah.
but it's hard for me not to ask someone who's seen so much success in both types of markets. An '08 recession type market, a COVID market, and then also crazy good markets.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
still seeing the same success. What would you say is the one or two key things that if I'm either looking to get into real estate or I'm looking to survive my real estate business right now that you're doing that maybe they're not?
Let me just give you the most practical advice I possibly can. Your willingness to adapt will be the difference between you being successful in this market and going into a different industry. Because if you're not willing to adapt, what you did in the market of yesteryear is not what's going to work in the market of today. Great markets create bad habits, they create bad agents. So many of us, myself included, I was eating from the buffet. You know what I look like when I went out to the swimming pool? I didn't look the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
I've been eating at the buffet in real estate. We got to put that down. We got to get disciplined. We need a meal plan. We need to audit what we're putting in our mouth. I mean, truly, this market requires somebody willing to adapt and somebody that's willing to build relationships. Start with your SOI, your sphere of influence, and then get uncomfortable. Who else is outside of that SOI that you would love to be in it? Figure out how to add value into their lives and add value into their understanding of the market. You will succeed. And that's what I'm preaching to our agents today.
Yeah, I love that, man. And that goes along with what we say. I mean, even from our standpoint as publishers, we're looking to connect with lenders and title companies. And, before it was pretty, you could predict, 1 in 5 would be a sale. But now in this market, it's not that no one's buying, it's that it's going to take 10 appointments to do that. So are you willing to do that? You just have to work a little bit harder, a little bit smarter, and start to focus on, like what you said, the sphere and then out. This has been awesome, Jonathan. Where can we find you if we want more Jonathan Spears?
Follow me on Instagram at Spears Group, at Jonathan M. Spears. Would love to connect with you. If you like this, send me a DM. And if you're ever on 30A, let me know.
You're the man. This has been the Real Producers Podcast. If we are not in your market and you would like us to be, either you or someone you know could bring the franchise to your city. We will see you next time.